I still remember that sound, slow, steady, like a slow, heavy drum beat in the dead of night. I was 12 when my parents sent me to spend the summer at my grandpa's farm in rural Tennessee. I slept in an upstairs bedroom, and my window looked straight at an old abandoned barn sitting by itself at the edge of the property. The first day was great. We fed the chickens, fixed a fence, had dinner on the porch while the sun went down. By bedtime, the whole farm felt strangely quiet. That night I woke up for no reason. For a few seconds, everything was completely silent. Then I heard it. The sound was coming from the old barn. Between each beat, I heard something else. Faint noises, maybe voices, maybe just the wind. I couldn't tell. I made myself peek through the window for a second. The barn was nothing but a dark outline against the trees. I shut the curtains right away. The next morning, I told Grandpa what I'd heard. He just smiled. "You've lived in the city your whole life," he said. "The country sounds different at night." I wanted to believe him. The second night proved he was wrong. The drumming came back, earlier this time, louder. It didn't stop after a few minutes. It kept going for what felt like forever. Slow, steady, like whoever was making it had all the time in the world. Then I heard singing, low voices drifting through the darkness. I couldn't make out a single word, but I knew one thing. Whoever was out by that barn wasn't singing for fun. I looked out the window again. The barn hadn't changed. Then I thought I saw someone, a tall figure slowly walking beside it. They seemed to be carrying a long stick that almost dragged across the ground. I froze, trying to get a better look. A few seconds later, the figure was gone. I told myself it had to be the shadows from the trees. I closed the curtains, got back into bed. Less than a minute later, I heard the drumming again, the same slow rhythm. Then I thought I heard someone walking very slowly underneath my window. I couldn't bring myself to look. I pulled the blanket over my head and lay there until sunrise, counting every drumbeat and hoping morning would come faster. The next morning, I begged Grandpa to check the barn with me. He finally agreed. Inside, it looked exactly how you'd expect. Old tools, rotting wood, dust everywhere. The only thing that didn't belong was a pile of fresh chicken feathers scattered across the floor. Grandpa guessed a fox or a coyote had gotten one of the chickens during the night. That explained the feathers, not the drumming, not the voices. The third night was the one I'll never forget. I woke up to the same slow rhythm. This time the voices were much closer. They weren't singing anymore. They were chanting. The voices rose and fell together like everyone was repeating the same words. I looked toward the barn. A bright flash lit up the inside. Then darkness, another flash, darkness again. Someone was in there. I couldn't move. I just sat in bed, staring through the window. I was terrified that if I looked away for even a second, someone would be standing outside the house. Right before sunrise, everything stopped. No voices, no drumming, nothing. The second Grandpa woke up, I told him everything. This time, he wasn't smiling. We walked to the barn together. The feathers were gone. In the middle of the floor was a large circle made from white powder. Around it were burned candles, dried flowers, small glass bottles, and a bunch of strange objects that definitely hadn't been there the day before. Grandpa didn't say a word. He turned around, went back to the house, and called the sheriff. The next night, deputies hid around the farm. Shortly after midnight, they arrested 3 people inside the barn. Investigators later said they had been performing occult rituals and sacrificing animals. The group had recently come from Louisiana, where they'd already gotten into trouble for doing the same thing. They were arrested before anyone got hurt. The drumming never came back, but every time I hear a slow, steady beat somewhere in the distance, I still pick. The chanting started just after midnight. It was so quiet that at first I thought I was imagining it. A few seconds later, my girlfriend asked if I could hear it too. Neither of us slept for the rest of the night. Even now, anytime I hear people singing somewhere far away after dark, my mind goes right back to that campground in southern Louisiana. A couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I rented an RV for a road trip across the southern United States. One of our stops was a small campground on the shore of a lake near a tiny town in Louisiana. The place looked beautiful. Old cypress trees surrounded the water. Spanish moss hung from every branch. There were only a handful of campsites. On the opposite side of the lake stood an old wooden cabin. The roof sagged. The porch leaned to one side. The windows were dark. During the day, it looked completely abandoned. Our first day was perfect. We cooked dinner, watched the sunset, and went to bed early. Around midnight, the voices woke us up. They weren't loud. If anything, they sounded like whispers. Slow, steady, the same words repeated over and over in a language we didn't recognize. Every few minutes, the chanting stopped. The silence that followed somehow felt even worse. I looked across the lake. Small lights moved slowly between the trees. At first, I thought they were flashlights. Then I realized they weren't moving like flashlights. They drifted smoothly, like people carrying candles. Sometimes I counted 5 lights, then 8. A few seconds later, there were only 4. I couldn't tell if more people were arriving or disappearing into the trees. We barely slept until sunrise. The next morning, I asked another camper if he had heard the chanting. He barely looked up from his coffee. He said it was probably coming from the old cabin. Then he went right back to drinking his coffee, like it happened all the time. For some reason, that scared me even more. The next evening, curiosity got the better of us. Right before sunset, we walked toward the cabin. As we got closer, we noticed a warm orange glow coming through one of the windows. Then the chanting started again. This time it was much closer, so quiet that we stopped talking just to listen. We slowly walked up to an open window. There were about 12 people inside. They all wore simple white clothes. Dozens of candles lit the room. A large circle had been made on the floor with white powder. Inside the circle, a young man was kneeling with his head down. His hands rested on his knees. They were shaking. Only a little, but enough for me to notice. An older woman dipped a bundle of fresh herbs into a large bowl of water. Then she slowly brushed them across his shoulders and forehead. After every movement, everyone else quietly repeated the same short phrase. Again, and again, and again. Nobody smiled. Nobody talked. Everyone looked completely calm. That was the part that scared me the most. It didn't feel like a show. It didn't feel like something put on for tourists. It felt real, like this ceremony had been taking place in that cabin for generations. Near one wall, I noticed a neat row of phones, watches, wallets, and rings. Everyone had left their personal belongings by the door. I remember wondering why. The young man suddenly lifted his head. His face was pale. He was breathing hard. His eyes moved around the room for just a second. It honestly looked like he was hoping someone would stop what was happening. I still had no idea what we were looking at, but every instinct told me we weren't supposed to be there. My girlfriend squeezed my arm so hard it actually hurt. Then, the chanting stopped. Every voice fell silent at exactly the same moment. Even the old drum in the corner stopped. The room became completely still. The only sound was water dripping back into the bowl. A man standing near the back slowly turned toward the window. He looked straight at us. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. It was like he had known we were standing there the whole time. Then he slowly raised one hand, not as a threat, not to wave, just one small motion, like he was inviting us inside. That was enough. We ran. I don't think I've ever run that fast in my life. Branches snapped under our feet. More than once, I thought I heard someone running behind us. Every time I looked back, there was nothing but dark trees and fog. By the time we reached the RV, we were completely out of breath. We started throwing our things inside. Neither of us even talked about staying. We just wanted to leave. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock at the door. Just one. I carefully pulled the curtain back. Nobody was there. A small bundle wrapped in white cloth was sitting on the step. On top of it was a thin wooden piece with a short message carved into it. Before sunrise, scatter this over the lake. I never saw who left it there. We never heard footsteps. We never heard anyone walk away. That was what scared me the most. It meant someone had been watching us the entire time. We brought the bundle inside and set it on the table. For almost 10 minutes, neither of us wanted to touch it. Not because we believed in anything supernatural, but because we were both thinking the same thing. If someone could walk right up to our RV without making a sound, then they knew exactly where we were. Finally, I unwrapped it. Inside were dried herbs, a small amount of cornmeal, and a tiny seashell. Nothing else. No note. No explanation. Somehow that made it even more unsettling. We argued about what to do. In the end, we decided there was no point finding out what would happen if we ignored the instructions. Just before sunrise, we walked down to the lake. A thick layer of fog covered the water. I slowly scattered everything over the surface. A sudden gust of wind blew some of it back toward our feet. We looked at each other. I was ready to leave, but my girlfriend quietly picked up what had blown back and scattered it over the lake again. This time, the wind carried it out across the water. For the first time all night, it felt like we could finally breathe again. As soon as the sun came up, we drove to the campground office. I told the manager everything. He listened without interrupting me once. When I finished, he asked only one question. Had we scattered the bundle over the lake before sunrise? I nodded. He nodded too. It seemed like that was the only answer he needed. I asked him what would have happened if we had just driven away. He looked out toward the lake for a long time. Then he quietly said, "Sooner or later, the road would have brought you back here." He never explained what he meant. 5 minutes later, we were back on the highway. I still don't know what we witnessed that night, but ever since then, whenever I see a small campground by a lake during one of my road trips, I keep driving. I got rid of that souvenir almost 5 years ago. But even now, I still stop for a second before opening a door just to make sure I'm about to walk into the room I expect. I know how crazy that sounds, but for about 3 weeks, I completely stopped trusting my own apartment. After college, I had the chance to join a research expedition in West Africa. I wasn't doing anything exciting. I was helping document old settlements and catalog the things we found. Near the end of the trip, I found a small wooden carving half buried in the ground near an abandoned village. It fit in the palm of my hand. It didn't look valuable, just an old, strange little object. I figured it'd make a cool souvenir. Around that same time, I had just moved into my dream apartment. It was in an old brick building in New York. Exposed brick walls, tall windows, a narrow kitchen. The whole place looked so much like the apartments from Friends that I couldn't believe I'd actually found it. I'd been a fan of that show since I was a kid. I put the carving on a shelf in my living room. A few days later, I noticed it had turned slightly. I assumed I'd bumped the shelf without realizing it. The next morning, it was facing a different direction. After that, I started lining it up perfectly before leaving for work. Every evening, I'd come home and find it turned just a little. Not much. Just enough to make me question my memory. At first, I laughed it off. Then it started bothering me. Eventually, I found myself taking a picture of the shelf every single morning. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining it. Every evening while I was still in the elevator, I'd pull up the photo on my phone before walking into my apartment. Then I'd compare it to what was sitting on the shelf. Every single time, my stomach tightened. In the picture, the carving was exactly where I'd left it. On the shelf, it wasn't. I couldn't decide what scared me more. The idea that it was moving, or the idea that I might be the one moving it without remembering. That's when the doors started. The first time, I didn't think much of it. I was walking to the pantry to grab a case of bottled water. I reached for the door, opened it, and found myself looking at my bathroom sink. I actually laughed. I figured I'd just been distracted. Then it happened again, and again. Then it started happening almost every day. The scariest part wasn't opening the wrong door. The scariest part was how certain I was. I knew exactly where I was going. I could already picture the shelves inside the pantry. My hand grabbed the handle. I opened the door, and there was my bathroom. Every time it happened, I felt something drop inside my chest. I couldn't figure out where I'd gone wrong. The apartment never changed. The doors stayed exactly where they'd always been. It was my sense of direction that felt broken. Or maybe something else was. As the days went on, it got worse. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, step into the hallway, and just stand there. Everything looked normal. The same couch, the same windows, the same brick walls. But it didn't feel like my apartment anymore. It felt like someone had rebuilt it from memory. Everything was almost right, just not completely. I started leaving the hallway light on. I slept with the TV running every night. I avoided silence, because in the silence, that feeling got stronger. Sometimes I caught myself thinking the apartment only changed when I wasn't looking. Like if I turned away for too long, I'd come back to a place that wasn't quite mine anymore. I barely slept. More than once, I seriously thought about making an appointment with a neurologist. Honestly, the idea that I was slowly losing my mind scared me a lot more than the carving ever did. Eventually, I took it to an antique shop in Brooklyn. The owner looked at it for only a few seconds. Then he asked where I'd found it. When I told him, he went quiet. After a long pause, he said he'd seen carvings like that before. According to him, some were used in old West African rituals that were meant to guide a person from the world of the living into the world of spirits. Then he slowly pushed it back across the counter. "You shouldn't keep this." I didn't ask any questions. That same day, I threw it into a public dumpster a few blocks away from my apartment. That night, I slept all the way through for the first time in weeks. After that, the doors never confused me again. My apartment finally felt like home again, and I never saw the carving again. But even now, every time I reach for a door in my apartment, there's always a tiny part of me that wonders if the room on the other side will still be the one I remember.